Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Wise Body Podcast, where we talk about eating disorder recovery and all things body. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hughes. I bring 20 years of experience as an eating disorder therapist, and I've worked with hundreds of clients to feel more empowered and connected to their body by tapping into the wisdom it holds. I'm so excited to keep learning with you as we navigate the windy path that is recovery. So let's get started. Welcome to the sister episode and season finale of season 1 of the Wise Body Podcast. I couldn't think of a better way to end the first season of the Wise Body Podcast other than to have my greatest role model and supporter, besides my parents, my sister, Elizabeth Markey. My sister is my best friend, second mom, and the voice of reason. She's always there for me and always knows what to say. I always looked up to my sister. I wanted to dress like her, have her friends, and be as smart and as athletic as her. Essentially, I wanted to be her. And even though I can't come close, I'm so glad she is my sister. My sister has a diverse background with degrees in international relations, French, and a master's in education. She has 20 years of marketing experience, was a lead writer for a major annuity company, and was once a freelance writer, writing for publications such as the Philadelphia Magazine and Elegant Wedding. Aside from these accomplishments, her most prestigious is being the best mom to her 2 boys, who are 27 and soon to be 23. There is nothing my sister can't do, and I'm so excited to have her on the Wise Body. Please welcome my sister, Elizabeth Markey. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Body Podcast. I really cannot think of a better way to end season 1 of the Wise Body other than to have my sister on and do a sister episode. And I think I coined that term, but really you're the best, and I'm the luckiest sister in the world. You're the best role model as a sister, as a daughter, as a mother, and a friend, and I love you so much, and thank you for being yes.
And I love you so much. And if you cry, I'll cry. So don't cry.
We're going to try not to cry, but we often do when we're together. So we'll see how this goes. But I thought it would be fun for us to come on and talk about just a few things, because we grew up together and in the same household with mom and dad and our brother, and during the same, we're of the same generation.
You're much younger than me.
Not by much.
7 years younger.
That's the same generation, though. So I feel like we grew up in the same time, in the same household. And I thought it would be really fun for us to talk about, what influenced us and how we experienced and saw our bodies. And also, just in terms of, how we grew up, but then how our bodies changed through pregnancy and motherhood and things like that. But first, I think it's important just to recognize that we come from privilege, and being white, cisgendered, able-bodied, and middle class. And also we had resources, like we never experienced food scarcity. We had good, solid educations. I think that's why both of us continued in education. We both have master's level degrees, went to grad school. And so coming from privilege, I've been thinking about this, it feels like another privilege to have dodged an eating disorder. And I just thought we could come on first talk about that. How do we feel like we managed to do that? How do you feel like you managed to do that?
Well, I think food in our house, we always had food, as you mentioned. We always had good food options. And I think that came from mom and dad, because we had a real routine around mealtime. It started with breakfast, especially when we were school age, because we always sat down for breakfast in the morning. Lunch was taken care of at school. We sat down all together for family dinners every night.
Did not miss dinner.
Could not miss dinner. You could not miss.
And could not be at your friend's house, and that could not be an excuse to miss dinner. You had to come home. That was it was mandatory.
Right.
It was also family time.
It was family time. And there was a very structured routine around, our mom stayed home and she made dinner every night except for Saturdays when they went out. And that was really the only night that there was not a real scheduled dinner. And she started cooking in the morning. And we always knew what time dinner was. We always knew what we were having. And there was no cereal option. So that was dinner.
Right. There was no backup.
There was no backup.
Yeah. What she made, you had.
Yes. But that's also true for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't remember being asked, oh, what do you want? It was,
this is what we're having.
This is what we're having.
Yeah.
And we had snacks, we had cookies, we had chips, we had fruit, we had ice cream. But there was never any restrictions put on what we could have as an after school snack.
Yeah. What do you remember about, like, if we didn't like something, what would happen?
I don't remember not liking anything. We had diversity. I mean, I think there was a lot of selection on our plate. There was always a main course. There was always a vegetable. There was always a salad, and there was always bread.
Yeah.
And so I think if we didn't like what mom was making for the main course, there was salad and bread or a vegetable. And I think we were encouraged to try it. But I think dad also had some foods that he didn't want to eat, so we never had them. And mom didn't want to eat.
Yeah.
So lima beans.
Yeah.
We never had lima beans.
I don't even know what those taste like.
We never had Brussels sprouts because dad didn't want them. So, and food was always good. And I think mom went to a lot of trouble to make recipes that tasted good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she and her friends, I think they all were good cooks and good bakers. And I think they went to a lot of trouble to always have balanced meals on the table. But to go back to your question, I think there was a real structure and routine around meal times. And so mom, I think, kept track of us that way.
Mm-hmm.
There were always eyes on us. It was always, who's eating? What are you eating? That surveillance. So I think that probably helped us. And there was no restriction. Mom never said, oh, you shouldn't be eating that. Or
no, we never were rules really around food other than you need to try this at least.
Right. Try it.
And it was encouraged that you complete your meal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now I'm thinking of additional questions, which always happens. So I don't mean to catch you off guard.
That's okay. We'll roll with it.
But yeah, we'll roll with it. But what do you remember about, like, not if you didn't finish?
I mean, the only reason why I think we wouldn't have finished was because we had snacks too close to dinner or we weren't hungry.
Which was discouraged.
It was, but as we got older, I do remember, we played sports after school, and I do remember having a snack before sports.
Mom did a really good job with, food exposures.
Right.
And also I think what you're getting at is this sense of stability. There was always like a routine. There was always, we always knew what to expect and when to expect it. And that provided a sense of stability and safety.
Right.
And so, having that, I think, I mean, do you think that helped promote a sense of like stability with our bodies too? Do you see like any connection to that at all? Do you feel like having that routine and structure at home with food and meals did that translate to feeling like stable in your body?
I think so, only because there was never any question that there wouldn't be dinner at the end of the day. We always knew Mom was in the kitchen in the morning and there was breakfast when we came down. We always had a packed lunch, or we had lunch at school provided by school. And there was always dinner at the end of the day. We never had to fend for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and then we got interested in cooking. I remember wanting to cook on the weekends, because
I never got that.
Well, when we were teenagers, we didn't get up in time for breakfast because mom would make breakfast for dad, still does to this day.
Amazing.
And the kitchen was closed because I do remember her saying that. The kitchen is closed.
Oh, yeah. Now I get it.
Now I get it with kids.
Gosh.
But
I've been in here for an hour. The kitchen's closed.
Yeah.
You can get whatever I made, but
Right.
don't make a mess in here.
Right. Exactly. So I remember having to, wanting to cook for myself at, 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning if the kitchen was closed. So, yeah, I do remember that. But I do think, because we never really had to fend for ourselves or plan meals growing up, there was never any, you say insecurity, but there was never any doubt that there was going to be food.
Right.
For us in a formalized routine. We really did have a structured, formal routine.
Right. So having food available and all types of food available,
Yes.
helped.
I think create a healthy relationship with mealtime
In food.
and
then,
food.
And then therefore with our bodies too. I'm still trying to work out how it feels in your body having those things. I don't know.
There was no anxiety around food. There was no anxiety around not having it.
Right.
And having to worry about where your next meal was coming from, what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really taken care of for us.
Yeah.
And that was good and bad because I went off to college and really didn't know how to cook.
How do you boil water?
Didn't know how to cook. Got married, didn't really know how to cook. And remember wanting or craving that routine, in college when you don't have that routine. And wanting, to map out the day and say, okay, we didn't have breakfast a lot of the time because college classes started early or we went to bed late but wanting, and college was different then. We had set times where the dining halls were open.
Oh, yeah.
And if you
had
missed
a
it,
race there
Right.
for dinner after practice.
right.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, and you were getting pizza. So
Right.
that was another sort of transition time for us for meals.
Yeah. Well, that's a good topic. Like how has this changed over the years? Quick story. I remember with my roommates, Lisa and Leslie, like the first night of college. And it was like, we all had just gotten there. All of our stuff was still in bags. Parents just left. And it was like around dinner time. And I was like, okay, guys, let's have dinner. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're like sitting down, like on the floor, and we're going to have like mac and cheese or something. Right. And their families didn't necessarily operate that way. And I remember like that was the first time where I was like, oh, okay. Like not everybody sits down for dinner. Like,
Right.
And their explanation for that was, I think, what happens a lot now for families, which is there were a lot of after school sports and activities
Right.
and piano lessons, whatever. And you just got dinner when you could. And for some reason, we worked around that, I guess. Like I don't remember, maybe a practice interfered once in a while with dinner, and I would like eat a sandwich on the way to practice or something, but that was so rare. Maybe it was like once a week or something. I can't really recall, but yeah, but that was like a wake up call that like not everybody had that kind of like structure and expectation around meals.
And Mom had said that you're going to appreciate home when you leave, when you go to college.
I did.
And we did. I
Yeah.
think we did. We realized that not every family had the structured meals. We
Yeah.
found that out, I think. And it was other things too. Our family may have done things differently than other families, and you didn't really realize it until you were living with other people.
Right.
But when the boys, like when our boys were little and now we're empty nesters, mealtime was it was stressful, to fit everything in. It's stressful because
Chaos.
their practices are after school, but they're not directly after school. They would be at 6:30 at night. They would be at 7:00 at night. It was dinner time. So that routine that we had growing up did not really exist when my kids grew up. And so dinner could have been at 4:15 in between getting home from school and going to practice, but still wanting a nutritious dinner or at least substantial meal. And we weren't all sitting down because not everybody was home at that time. Right. So I guess, I felt very lucky that we did have a structured routine around meals. And the expectation was we participated. Right. Yeah.
You were there.
You were there.
Yeah. And that was also, I think I mentioned, like, that was like our family time. So whatever you were doing during the day, right, you would come home and we'd share our days and talk about our days. And that was really important for us, I think, as a family to connect, because the weekends were just nuts too with, like games and practices. And, we could be gone like all day at a game.
Right.
So,
family dinners.
Yeah. I'm just remembering, I think, what I was going to say earlier, which was I remember after practice, like being ravenous and eating a snack, large, substantial snack, like right before dinner. Mom hated that because she didn't want me to spoil my dinner.
Right.
But I could not. I could not wait 20 minutes. Like, it was impossible to do that. And so I would eat my snack and I would have dinner and it was okay. But I remember, I guess I'm bringing this up because it reminds me of like hunger cues and responding to those. And I always feel like I always did that, even though there was that structure, expectation that this is dinner and this is what you're going to eat. Somehow I don't feel like it messed with that. Because I think if you have this message of like, this is what I made, you have to, it was encouraged to complete, that could interfere with like ability to tap into if you were full or not. And for some reason it worked out. It was okay. Anyway, side note. Okay, so moving on, maybe we talk about like growing up and like what do you feel like influenced how we saw or experienced our bodies. I think we talked a little bit about Mom, but I think, she was a big influence of how we experienced our bodies.
And the way that she moved was very graceful, and she always looked good, and she always encouraged us to look good-ish, as much as as good as we're going to look at 13 wearing what we want to wear in the 80s. And I think fashion, our clothes, we had uniforms in elementary school.
Yeah.
So, we had to wear our uniforms, and then we had a dress code.
Do you think that helped? Having a uniform and dress code?
Uniform, I don't know. I mean, I guess. I don't remember it feeling, that was just what we did. I don't remember feeling, oh gosh, I wish I could wear what I want. I mean, it just wasn't an option. Oh, you did?
I absolutely hate maroon for that reason.
Maroon and gray? You didn't want to wear that anymore?
No. After 5 years, I was done with those colors.
Yeah.
Forever.
I remember being more selective about my shoes. I wanted to be more selective about my shoes.
Well, because you could choose that.
Well, we couldn't really. Mom did. I don't remember picking those shoes I wanted. I remember picking the school shoes. What?
Eastlands.
I didn't have Eastlands. I had Mary Janes with buckles, and I never wanted that. And I always wanted a little heel, a little pump, and never got it. So I think when I could pick my own shoes, that was a big deal. And we had school shoes, which I don't know if they do that anymore. Like, we got one pair of school shoes for the school year, and you wore that every day. And the good thing about a uniform was you didn't have to stress out about what you were wearing. But there was no real expression. And so when we had a dress code, it was expression within limits.
Right.
And I feel like, my friends dictated or helped to dictate sort of what we wore, and you wanted to look like other people.
And
we wanted to fit in. We wanted to, and we would trade clothes. We've talked about this. We would trade clothes, and you had to make sure you fit into the clothes, your friends' clothes you wanted to wear. But I never remember it being, I don't know, but it was also, the 80s. And so clothes were baggier.
Yeah, there was not this over focus on like sizes and things.
No.
Like, I wore like men's flannels.
Right.
I remember my soccer coach one time, it's like, your shorts are falling down,
right,
because they were they were oversized. Yeah, that was
we had baggier clothes, so
that was the style.
It was the style,
yeah,
and we wanted to look like that because everybody else looked like that,
right? So I think that was kind of lucky.
Well, it was lucky because we didn't wear revealing anything. We couldn't. We didn't really wear short skirts. We didn't wear tank tops. That wasn't really a thing.
Well, it was a dress code. We weren't allowed to.
Right.
But are you saying like even on the weekends or at parties and things, like you didn't? I don't think you did.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't. I remember getting dressed up for bar and bat mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And wanting to have a really nice dress.
Yeah.
And the prom wanting to have a nice dress. But there was nothing revealing. It was never tight. It was also Laura Ashley gunny sack lace. So it wasn't form-fitting and it wasn't revealing.
Yeah.
So there was not any expectation that I was going to show off my body in a prom dress.
Right. So I think that's like another very lucky protective factor.
Right.
Like something we just did not have to contend with.
No.
And, I was thinking like with uniforms, if you're wearing the same things, did you ever like compare like how someone else looked in the uniform versus how you looked in the uniform? I don't think I did. I don't remember doing that.
Well, I don't remember really doing that.
So maybe like having a uniform helped not compare, but I know that's not always the case.
No, I don't remember ever thinking, oh, she looks better in the maroon and gray than I do with the Peter Pan white shirt, Peter Pan color. Nobody looked good. No one looked good.
And you couldn't wear makeup and you couldn't wear jewelry.
No.
I think I got in trouble for wearing like dangly earrings one time.
So you wear them all the time. I'll show you.
Oh my God.
I don't remember. I think we all looked uniform. I think that was the point. We all looked the same.
And that it wasn't meant to be a distraction so you could learn. Is that the reason for uniforms? It must be. It must be.
I think
conformity,
so, but
also.
Conformity, but
on the Catholic school.
And, there was no indication of socioeconomic status. It really, what you wore was like what everyone else wore. So you couldn't wear jewelry, to differentiate yourself in any real way. So you never had any indication of, social economic status of the students. We didn't. And then that came later when we had a dress code and you could, tell that people were
spending more money
on what they were wearing. But, I don't remember that being, the uniform. I don't remember that being any consideration of how we looked.
Right. I remember like, oh, you wore the long skirt today versus the jumper. Okay, cool. But that was really
right.
Yeah.
But we also distinguished ourselves more with like our backpacks or stickers or barrettes or
you had to be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to work a little harder to express, originality, I think, with the uniform. But and then the dress code.
Yeah.
But I think our friends sort of became more influential as we got older.
Right.
Early teens.
Middle school.
High school. Right.
Yeah.
But I should say with clothes, Mom and Dad were pretty particular about what we could and couldn't wear.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember saying like, you can't wear that.
They didn't want us look. Yes, I do, because I would pull things out of Dad's closet, like blazers and things, and want to wear that. And Mom would say I looked frumpy because Because it was oversized.
big.
It was too big.
It was also like, a grown man size, and you were like between.
Yeah. But I remember Dad's Oxford shirts.
Yeah.
Sports coats, blazers, things like that was sort of all the rage. So,
well, and I think also I've mentioned this on a previous episode, but that I was a swimmer. And so, how sports influenced, how we saw our bodies and experienced our bodies. And, remember talking to you about this too, that when, and I was a swimmer from like 3 through college and like competitive. And I remember, I had a moment after I wrote my dissertation of just like this deep, deep gratitude to Mom and my swim coaches for never talking about my body, never talking about my weight, never talking about nutrition. And when I put on my bathing suit, it was like, I'm going to work. And it never felt like, how do I feel in this bathing suit, or who's looking at me, or feeling judged or anything like that, because it was work and it was hard. And maybe there just wasn't the space I didn't have the space in my brain to worry about those things. So that also felt like really lucky, and having like good, role models in Mom and our swim coaches, I think felt like such a very strong protective factor. And through college too, high school coaches, college coaches. Yeah, it was more about, I think you may have said this, but it was more about like what your body can do. And like, I was very competitive and wanted to get faster. And I was a long distance swimmer. And so I, just focused more on my times, and if I could beat time and just getting better. It was not really about like how I looked in my swimsuit or how I felt in my body. The only thing that really came up was like around injury, and I had like a rotator cuff issue. But again, it was really about like, well, this is going to impede my performance. And it wasn't like, I didn't feel like my body was really letting me down. It was just like an annoyance. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you competed at a very high level. And so you were evaluated based on performance. And
well, I mean, it was D1, but I don't think anyone got cut from the team. I think probably by junior year, I would have been cut, because I like peaked freshman year, and then there really was no point in me being on the team anymore. I didn't really contribute, but I really loved being on the team, and I loved my coach, and I loved the swim team and my friends. And I think it also aligned well with how we grew up in terms of providing that structure and expectation. And like, it aligned actually really well with like meals. I had to eat at certain times around practice, and I couldn't eat too close to practice before, so I don't know.
Well, that structure, I think, is a recurring theme in our childhood, college years. I mean, I struggled when I got to college with the structure of it, or the lack of it,
like adjusting,
because we went from having to be at school at 7:26 in the morning, with classes all the way through, scheduled lunch period, sports right after school. We were home by 5:30, and then we had dinner and homework and bed and rinse and repeat. And when we got to college, you had the structure of athletics. I was just happy to make it through high school. I always wanted to make a good team. I was not naturally athletic. We had to participate in sports, which was, it was good and less good, I guess. But, you wanted to progress, and you wanted to do better, and you wanted to make the teams just because that's where your friends were, at least, But, and sometimes I made the team and sometimes I didn't. Loved high school.
Yeah.
But then when I got to college, I really struggled with the lack of structure, because we went from having such a routine to, I only have 2 classes today. One's at 9, one's at 11, and I'm free for the rest of the day. And I wasn't playing sports when I first got to college. And that was tough. That was really tough. And then I always craved that dinner time of, okay, it's 5:00. Like, let's get our friends together and we're going to march over to the dining hall at the same time. And we did start doing that, which really helped me. We knew who we were meeting and when we were going to dinner. And
That's impressive.
well, I think
I only had that because I was on a team. You had to like create that.
we had to create that, but also the dining hall closed at a certain time.
Right.
I mean, so if you didn't have dinner during that time, then you weren't having dinner. And
Yeah.
so that sort of helped with the structure. But even, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but, when our boys were growing up, we tried to have, dinners. They may not have always been sit-down dinners together, but we always had sort of dinners after school, and we had sort of a crazy after work, after school rush. And when my boys went off to college, the youngest went off to college, I really struggled with not having that schedule, come home from work and, it was two of us and we were saying, well, what do you want to do for dinner? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do for dinner? And you're not cooking for 4 or even 3. You're cooking for 2. And that felt wrong somehow that we were
Making a full.
making a full effort of it. So
Yeah.
I think that routine growing up really helped to safeguard our health, safeguard our mental health, safeguard, our physical, I guess, appearance, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our parents who did that.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to something because we did not have the internet growing up,
Right.
but we had magazines.
Yes.
So
Stacks of magazines.
those were like really popular to have. I remember and I looked forward to like YM magazine. And
Subscriptions. I had subscriptions to magazines.
Yeah. And I think the research would indicate that like those kinds of publications would negatively impact body image. And we were talking about this earlier that like we weren't necessarily looking at people's bodies in those magazines. And maybe in part because, we're part of thin privilege. And so I wonder if we were in bigger bodies, if maybe we would have done more body comparison. But we were focused more on like fashion and who's dating who.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to know what they were wearing, what was their hairstyle, especially hairstyles were getting big, different. You could put an updo for the prom. So I remember looking at things like that and fashion, makeup, products, not necessarily, waist size.
Yeah.
I knew that was attractive though. Like I remember thinking models on covers were attractive and that's why they're on the cover. But I don't remember having a strong need to compare.
Yeah. Yeah. You also couldn't tell, like, I feel like you couldn't really tell really the size of someone in a magazine. I mean, I think thinness, but like, yes. But maybe not how tall they were. I don't know. I feel like maybe I would have been more self-conscious about maybe my height, knowing that they were like 5'11", and we're like
Not 5'11".
5'3".
We're not 5'11". But also, I mean, now we were also very naive. We took those images at face value. Now things are airbrushed. Were they airbrushed then? Did they make modifications?
I think they were starting to. So I had a previous conversation in another episode about airbrushing. And I think it was like just starting, but we didn't necessarily know that. I never knew that until it sort of became revealed, I don't know when, like early 2000s?
Maybe, but I mean, we grew up with jazzercise, and that was sort of a lifestyle. I don't remember there being a huge emphasis on weight for that. I remember it being more exercise and women getting more involved in exercise. And for us, girls in school getting more involved with sport and competitive sports.
Yeah. But that was like built into our school.
It was.
You had to do it.
It was.
So it wasn't like you had to seek it out.
No, but I do remember wanting to seek it out in college, joining the tennis team because I wanted something to do in the afternoons. So I had a job for about 2 weeks when I first got to college. A friend of mine and I at Haagen-Dazs, because a friend of mine and I grew up in very similar situation, and we were sort of at loose ends at the end of the day. We missed the schedule. And so we said, we're going to get a job so we have somewhere to go in the afternoon.
Right.
And won't that be fun? And then as soon as they didn't schedule us on the same shift, it became less fun.
Right.
And it petered out. I think she lasted a little longer than I did, but we ended up filling our days. But we did intramural sports. I remember teaching swimming to have some structure. I remember joining college. I taught swimming lessons in college to, local kids at the school pool. I mean, just craving sort of filling my schedule because we had such a demanding schedule. I guess demanding, I don't know is the right word, but I guess structured schedule that we did not have.
Yeah.
And I think that formed, a lot of our belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's bring up one more topic, question, and it's, just a small one. How did pregnancies and motherhood change our bodies?
Small question.
Yeah, maybe a whole nother episode, but we'll touch on it.
Well, I just remember sort of, you're always so excited to be expecting a baby, and that's sort of what we always wanted was a family. And the things that happen when you become pregnant and start experiencing changes due to the pregnancy is, you just lose all kinds of control, and you're starving all the time and have cravings. So things that you didn't normally want to eat, you all of a sudden were craving and had to have, and weird times of day. And then you didn't feel good at other times of the day. And that's just, you were talking about hunger cues. I think those totally change when you're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And then the physical changes of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And at first you're like, a little bump. And then everything sort of goes to hell. And it's no longer a little bump. And you want to be so happy because this is what you always wanted, but you all of a sudden don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
You don't look like yourself.
Yeah.
Your clothes don't fit. You're not wearing the things that maybe you want to be wearing. And I just remember feeling very out of control and trying to keep the train on the tracks as far as how I felt, how I looked, how I was responding to, upcoming motherhood. And the second baby was everything, sort of went off the rails early.
Yeah, your body changes quicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, as I'm an eating disorder therapist, that was really a time where I felt like, I understand some of my clients are going through in terms of their bodies changing and needing to change, and a level of acceptance of like, okay, like this is just what needs to happen now. And I don't really I don't need to control it. And that in not controlling it, that is a healthy approach to pregnancy for me. And so I feel like, there's some kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but like some kind of like sacrifice of like my body kind of giving in to like what needs to happen, but not really at my own expense completely, if that makes any sense.
Well, and you're being encouraged to let those changes happen, right? By your family, your doctor. You want a healthy baby. So these are the things that have to happen. You are expected to gain weight because that is, the result of a healthy pregnancy typically.
Right.
You need to gain a certain amount of weight. You need to eat certain things for the health of the baby. So you are doing it, a sacrifice in a way, if the result is a healthy baby.
Was there ever like a mention of a cap on how much weight you should gain?
Probably, but I blew past that. Really, on both of them, blew right past it. I think so, because I remember Mom talking about it.
I think it was more her generation that was very focused on that.
Right.
You could only gain a certain amount of weight.
Right.
I feel like that was less so maybe for us, or no?
I don't remember. I mean, I gained a lot of weight with first. I was on bed rest, and it was a lot of fluid weight, so it was a little out of my control.
Yeah.
And then with the second knew it would probably be our last baby, and really did not restrict anything. And I don't remember thinking, oh, I have to keep under a certain weight. And I had weird cravings though, too. So I sort of let that direct what I ate and did not consciously restrict any foods because of weight gain.
Yeah. I think I was so focused on like my age because I was older and having my kids and how that might impact their health. And so I was just so scared about like them being okay because of my age. I was so overly focused on that rather than anything else.
Yeah. And I think after the first pregnancy, you realize things do go back to normal when your hormones settle down. And, they do go back to whatever normal.
A new normal.
But you do
and
start
then it changes
to feel
again when you are perimenopausal or going to menopause.
Well,
Whole other episode.
But I do remember being relieved when I started to feel like myself again after the baby was born, and then continuing to feel better and better
as they get older.
And you establish a routine. Not right away, of course, because,
I'm still in it. I feel
no control.
With 2 kids that are 5 and under.
We have no control. We've lost complete control.
There's just less time for yourself and less time to even think and feel organized,
Right. And to prepare meals and things, when I think about when the kids were little, you wanted to give them nutritious food. You wanted to give them, but you were exhausted and didn't feel great. And especially after the second.
Busy. It's busy.
And overwhelmed.
And I have to go to the grocery store. So on that note, no, this was really fun.
This was fun.
Yeah. And I hope we do another sister episode on something else. We'll have to think of something else.
We will.
And thank you all for being here and listening in. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen in this week. I'm so glad you're here with me as we learn more from our wise bodies and about eating disorder recovery. For more, follow me on social media, and please share the Wise Body podcast with your friends. Lastly, if you're interested in a free client consultation, please reach out on drhughes.com. And remember, always take care of yourself and your temple. See you next time on the Wise Body podcast.